Hello there, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I am building, painting and weathering the F-16 from Italeri in 1:72 scale. I hope you enjoy. The kit gives you two options for a single seat and a two-seater variant. I chose the two-seater variant for this build. After some cleaning, the seats can be glued into the cockpit. The cockpit itself is very minimalistic and only has these control panels added to the upper half. I have to paint the cockpit before I can continue with the construction. I added a light grey base color with my airbrush. The seats are painted in a darker grey tone with a brush. The control panels both have one decal. I added them off camera, but here's the result. Since the cockpit will be closed anyway, this level of detail should be okay. With the cockpit finished, I can assemble the individual parts. I am brushing Tamiya extra thin cement over all the gaps and then using clamps to hold everything down. This should reduce the gaps I would have to fill up later. Some parts like this air intake need more cleaning. The rest of the construction was very simple and went down without any major problems. After finishing the construction, the build showed some bigger flaws. There were multiple large gaps between the wings and the cockpit. To fill them, I added some AK putty and pressed down into the gap with a brush. After letting the putty harden, I used sandpaper to remove the excess and smooth everything down. Now I can prepare everything for the painting. First I have to mask off the canopy. There's only a small stripe in the middle that does not have to be masked. Using Revell Contactor Clear, I can glue the canopy onto the cockpit. I used Vallejo Grey Primer as the base coat. I usually prefer using a black primer, but in this case I wanted the following colors to look brighter and more saturated. I would have preferred to use a white primer, but I didn't have any at the moment. After letting the primer dry for 24 hours, I am using Vallejo's dark Gull Grey for the top side. I masked off the underside for a clean edge. Now it's time for the part I have been waiting for the most and why I'm building this model in the first place, the camo scheme. I chose to create a custom Ukrainian camo scheme in anticipation of the upcoming use of F-16 fighters in the Ukrainian Air Force. Using masking tape, I mask off a random amount of grey, creating sharp edges and angles. I try to leave the corresponding areas relatively large. And this is the plane after the first masking. The first color for the camo will be Vallejo's 71-317. The color is very light, which is why I need several coats for full opacity. The masking tape worked really well and there were only a few parts where I had overspray. But these would be fixed with the next step. And for the next step I have to add masking tape yet again. But this time I made these sections much smaller and worked with much sharper angles to make a kind of jagged pattern. For the darker blue I chose Vallejo's Russian Air Force blue. This color was very vibrant, but much like the one before, I needed multiple coats. As a nice side effect, the darker blue created two different tones over the light blue and the dark grey. Now comes the satisfying part of removing the tape and seeing if the camo has the look I hoped for. And I have to say, I'm very pleased. This is exactly the effect I was hoping for. I didn't want to leave the underside grey, so I added Vallejo 71-344. But the color difference is almost unnoticeable on camera. The drop tanks and the vertical stabilizer get special treatment. Both get their upper half painted dark blue. I use a mix of Vallejo blue and Russian Air Force blue for this. And then the lower half gets painted in a nice, bright and saturated yellow, mixed with AK RLM04 and white to create a Ukrainian flag. The engine nozzle is brush painted using Revell Aquacolor Iron and black for the wheels. With that the painting is finished and I can seal everything with a layer of gloss varnish. The next step is weathering. AK's panel liner for grey and blue camo is the perfect choice for this. The wash is applied generously over all panel lines and details, and I don't have to worry about making any mess here. Then the wash has to dry for about half an hour. Using a cotton swab dipped in a little bit of white spirit, I can remove the excess wash. By streaking in the direction the plane would travel, it also creates a nice looking streaking effect. The same steps are repeated for the underside as well. Next are the decals. Since this is a custom F-16, I can only use the basic markings. The instructions weren't 100% clear on the exact position of most decals, and some of them seemed smaller or bigger than they should be. That's why these markings are probably not completely accurate and contain a decent amount of artistic freedom. The included weapons feature almost no details and are just painted in a dark grey color or white for the sidewinders. The weapons and wheels are attached with super glue. All that's left is some smoke pigment for the gun, and it's time for the final result. And with that, this model is complete. It was a nice change to build an airplane again, because I mostly built tanks. I think that the model turned out well, despite the very simple kit from Italeri. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe for more content, and if you have any feedback or suggestions, let me know in the comments. Have a nice week, and see you next time.